How you doing, y'all? Welcome to Confidence. How are you feeling? That's what I really want. How are you feeling? Because if you'd ask me, I would tell you, you know what? I feel great. I really do. The stars are aligning. It feels like I'm, kind of finding my way again. I feel confident. I feel like I'm in good energy. And I hope you guys are feeling that way too. We got a great show ahead of us. A lot of like different topics. And honestly, I was doing some research before this podcast, and I'm like literally excited to share what I have found for you guys today. So the big topics that we're going to cover today, starting with somebody sent me in a question about showing genuine interest and why people seem to fall off after that. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the chase. We're going to talk about the science behind the chase, which is going to be really fucking great. And why some people think that they're in love so fucking fast. And then somebody also sent me in a question about jealousy. And it wasn't a question about jealousy in relationships. It was actually a question about jealousy when it comes to friendships. Friends that maybe like seem like they got all their shit together, right? They maybe make more money or maybe attract more attractive partners or more high value relationships. And she just can't help but feel some type of way about it. So we're going to talk about actually the origins of jealousy and envy. It was weird. Some girl at the coffee shop, right? The girl that does the cash register, she gave me this book. She was like, hey, I was reading this book, and she was telling me how like, oh, I didn't get through it, but it's a really good book. I don't know. So she's like, go read it. So I was like, all right. I have like 4 books in rotation right now. So I was like, I don't know where I'm going to find time to read this shit. Anyways, I picked it up last night. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'll just read it before bed. That's what I do. Whenever somebody gives me a book to read, I'm like, all right, it will be my nighttime read instead of like my actual daytime read. But I'm reading this book at night, and it's so weird because this person sent me in the question about jealousy, and this book is talking about the origins of competition in human society. So I'm going to share that with you because I thought it was fascinating. And we're essentially going to talk about scarcity versus like abundance. And honestly, both really are actual and operate together. I know it doesn't make sense right now, but it's going to at some point. But first, let's get into the original topic. Somebody sent me in this sentence, and she said, how come everything was going great, and then I started actually showing genuine interest, and he dipped? Well, first off, this is a very vague statement to begin with, but I was like, you know what? Let's tackle it. Let's just go after it. So again, very general, right? Why did I start showing genuine interest and then they left? I mean, there's numerous reasons that this can be possible. And here's where I'll start with this. I feel like in dating, a lot of people, they date people, and I think this is the process of dating, and this is why I'm like, I like this statement, but I also don't, because like, this is what dating is. Like, dating is getting to know somebody, getting to figure people out, understand if you care about them or not, or understand whether or not you want to be in relationship with that person. Sometimes in dating, guess what? You're going to meet people, you're going to vibe for a little bit, or it's going to seem that way, but maybe they don't see you that way. We got to be able to accept that. And right off the jump, you know what I'm saying? Just generally, there's just going to be some people, like I said, you're going to put in the energy and the effort, and you're going to think that like, oh, but why didn't they choose me? I don't know. Could be numerous reasons. You know what I'm saying? There's so many different things. The first place I'll probably start is, number one, their own history, their own patterns, what they're looking for in a relationship, what they value, where they're at in terms of their capability of being in a relationship. I'll kind of tell you a story from one of my coachees who kind of like went through this process. So I'm helping out this coachee. She came to me with like an anxious attachment. She just got out of something like, I don't know, a little 1-2 month dating thing. She was like, I'm trying to figure shit out. She meets this guy, and things are going solid. The guy's like patient. He seems chill, good vibes, good energy. She's enjoying the relationship, and it's moving along. And honestly, she was doing a really good job of checking herself when it came to her anxiety. She didn't feel like she was pushing him too much. She was being very patient. She was still being very independent in the actual relationship itself. And after about 2 months, he started to just somewhat get a little bit more distant. Something happened where he had some stuff with family, and he started spending more time with them. And, he had some very valid excuses for like spending time away from her. But, along the line somewhere, she was starting to feel like, I don't understand, like what's going on, right? Like she in her mind was like, I showed up perfect. Like I did all the things. I didn't push him. I didn't try to make things happen. And obviously she's looking for something very real and committed, and she communicated all that. And then it hits this point where out of nowhere, he starts to get more distant and then turns around and says he doesn't want to do it anymore. 3 months in. And my client is sitting there like, what the fuck did I do wrong? Like, you know what I'm saying? Why is it that I never get chosen? And this is a very common situation. And sometimes, like I said, it's not that necessarily sometimes you're doing something wrong. It could really just be about that person. Now, I know that person that she was talking to was coming off a situation in which I think it was like he was coming off this like very toxic, more toxic relationship. And that's the thing too, is like, you don't know where that person's headspace is. Like for a lot of people, and especially the people that I coach, it's like this pendulum that swings back and forth for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? Like finding a great committed relationship is not very easy. And I think what happens for a lot of people is they swing back from avoidant to anxious, from avoidant to anxious. And sometimes it's like, you meet this person, you have this like very toxic, intoxicating chemistry relationship. And then you meet a person that's like very peaceful and very solid and just very like, genuine. And for some people that just doesn't maybe feel that great. And we're going to talk a little bit about the chase a little bit as well, and why it's so intoxicating in that as well. But I guess to my point is, again, there's a multitude of reasons why somebody could fall off. And like I'm saying is more than likely, sometimes it's not really even so personal to you. It really has a lot to do with that person, their history, where they're at in their relationship journey. Are they healed enough? Are they able to really lean into somebody that is giving them genuine good energy? And for a lot of people, they really aren't at that place. Flip side of the coin though. I do feel like there's things that we also control, right? On your side of the house, I would love to know how you showed up in this relationship. When you're saying that you weren't showing genuine interest and then you were, right? For a lot of people, again, they're intoxicated by that chase. Maybe you were really good at setting your boundaries early on in the relationship, but then as soon as you started to let your walls down, your boundaries fell out the window. And yeah, that person just took you for granted or just felt, this isn't for me. I do find that happens a lot with my anxious as well, too, where they feel like they're doing a good job of upholding their boundaries and being independent. But as soon as they get into a relationship, it's like all of that shit falls out the window. So again, I think there's two sides to this question, right? Which is number one, there's things that you can control, which is, really working on your self-worth, really making sure that we have firm boundaries and really taking our time with people because we got to see. And again, we're going to talk about that when we talk about, the chase itself. But the flip side of the coin is, there are just some people out there that number one, aren't going to like you like that. But number two, maybe they're just not in a place in their own healing and in their own journey to be able to be capable of a relationship themselves. And here's the other really hard truth I think about dating. And I think this is just real. I think it's very hard to find somebody where you really judge them as an equal or somebody that you find as a really great value. And they also view you in that same way, right? Usually in dating, it's kind of like one person's the chaser and the other one's the pulling awayer. You know what I'm saying? Because, and this is just the truth. Again, I feel like a lot of times in dating, some people go on dates with people that in the back of their mind, they kind of already know that you're not their person, or there's parts about you that they don't actually truly love. But again, sometimes people fall in love with the chase. And that's what we're going to talk about here is like, that's what you really need to you look out for and have caution with, is that this is the reality for a lot of human relationships, is that beginning period of dating is so fragile. And the other part is most people are operating from a place of dopamine. They're operating from a place of fantasy. You guys don't actually know who each other is. And so what happens is as you get to know each other over time, that's when you start to see the value differences. That's when you start to see parts of the things that you don't like. And again, sometimes you're so enamored with the chase and the fantasy that you're creating about what this person can be for you in your life, when that fantasy goes away and the reality comes in of like a real relationship 3-4 months down the line, and you actually have to be with this person and commit yourself, I mean, that's when a lot of people start to look back and be like, oh, wait, do I really want to do this? Am I really about it like that? And I guess that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that there's some people that are literally just addicted to the dopamine of like meeting somebody and that's it. Because that's actually where they get all their dopamine from. So let's talk about the chase for a half a second. So I was using the word dopamine a lot. So I was doing some research on this, right? And we were talking about, again, the question was, how come, everything was going great, but then I started showing genuine interest. I finally tell them how I feel, or I'm finally vulnerable, and they lose interest. So here's the thing about dating in the early stages from a neuroscience perspective. This was a fascinating article. And it talks about how humans are reward-focused creatures, right? And dopamine is a chemical that makes us feel great and take action to receive rewards. That's what it is. And so that beginning part of dating is really dopamine based. So there's 3 things that you need to know about dopamine. Number 1, dopamine rises in anticipation of a reward. So it's not just the reward itself, but it's the anticipation of a reward. And then the dopamine release is twice as high when there is maximum uncertainty of reward. So the dopamine release is double heightened when there is maximum uncertainty of reward. So, right, when there's not a lot of certainty and we get it, we get the reward, that's when our dopamine really spikes the most. So again, anticipation and uncertainty. Those are the 2 big words that I want you to pay attention to. So this is what the chase really is at the beginning, right? It's this anticipation of what this relationship could be. And then again, where do we really find those intoxicating relationships? Think about all the people that you have motherfucking chemistry with. What happens, right? The chase is most enticing when there's a lot of uncertainty. So the most intriguing partners that you will meet are partners where you don't know where you stand. They're full of mixed signals, or there's a lot of hot and cold behavior, aka the unpredictable person. This is why the unpredictable person, or those hot and cold relationships that everybody finds themselves in, this is the reason that they think that they're in love or that they care so much, is because they are spiking the fuck out of your dopamine. Because again, there's this uncertainty of when you're going to get that reward. Okay, so and that's the thing, right? We're talking about the emotional roller coaster creates the illusion of intense attraction. It's not actually the person themselves that is so attractive to you. It's actually just those roller coaster of emotions that is making you feel that you're so in love or they're so amazing. So, and that's the thing too. As human beings, we are wired to repeat behaviors that make us feel good. So you might associate that person as a potential source of pleasure. And again, this is unconscious, right? And the fastest way to justify your behavior is to believe you are very attracted to them, right? You're like, but I love them. They're just so amazing. Why? It's funny. I was actually coaching a guy today, and we were, I'm actually helping 2 straight dudes right now, kind of both through the same situation where they both dealt with these hot and cold women, and they're really struggling, coping because they miss them and they care so much. And they know, again, we talked about it on Cutting Ties, the last podcast. They have a feeling that this person isn't right for them, right? Why? Because there's such hot and cold behavior. But what happens? They're associating that person as the person that they love. Literally, the guy on the phone, he's telling me today, he's like, I just don't understand. Like, I know shit was crazy, but like, I just still really care. Like, so he's like, pretty much trying to convince me, like, nah, like there was a lot of good there. Like, I'm like, bro, you should hear some of the stories that he has told me about this girl and him. But that's what it is. It's this up and down spike that we're associating with love. And that's why when we meet the person that's not doing that, that's very predictable, it almost feels boring. And because again, it's not as intoxicating, right? And that's the problem too, is it creates this self-fulfilling loop that it makes you chase them, right? You're thinking about them all the time. You're thinking about the situation, and essentially you decide that they're the one just because. You've now decided that this person that is so hot and cold with you is the person that you're in love with because you're so attracted to them. And why are you so attracted to them? Actually, probably more because of the uncertainty and the unpredictability of the relationship, and maybe less about who they actually are. Now, here's the thing. It's not that you can't have good, intense, vibrational chemistry with somebody and it lead to a really great relationship. But here's the thing is that you don't really necessarily know this until you're deeper into the relationship. And what I mean by that is you really need to ask yourself, well, there's two questions I feel like that could really help you decipher this, right? And something you need to think about is how much of your interest is really based on deciphering their mixed signals and deciphering their hot and cold behavior, right? Is it really, think about it, is it really about how amazing they are? Or is it really about trying to figure out this puzzle of why sometimes they're showing up and sometimes they're not, and why they sent me a text today, but I haven't heard from them yesterday? Do you understand what I'm saying? Is it really about that? You need to ask yourself that. Another great question is, are you attracted to how they make you feel about yourself or how you feel in pursuit of them? And I thought that was a great question because it's kind of like really asking you, it's like, yeah, it's, do they make you feel like you can be this honest, vulnerable self? And not only can you be that, but do you feel appreciated for who you actually are? Do they make you feel better as a person? Or are you really just feeling good only in the times where things are solid? And again, when you're making things right, because that's where it is. A lot of people get stuck into that loop, right? When I'm having this conversation with my client, right? Like that's what we're talking about is like when you actually put some perspective to it like that of like, okay, but really think about how you were feeling in this relationship. I tell my coaches all the time, your body tells you everything that you need to know. If you're feeling this intense anxiety, this up and down, this hot and cold, that you have to edit yourself, that you can't fully be yourself and lean into somebody fully and honestly, that is all you really need to know. That is all the information you need to know that that is not the right relationship for you. And again, a lot of people are stuck in this dopamine loop. They're stuck in this idea of pursuing somebody that's just giving them this hot and cold energy. It's not even really about who the person actually is. Because here's what happens for a lot of people, right? When you eventually win, let's say you get this person to actually care about you, right? They're hot and cold, right? We're talking about this intensity of the dating period in the beginning, right? There's all this anticipation. We don't know if we're actually going to be something real. Like I'm trying to see her, but like, you know, it's hot and cold. We don't know. But eventually you get to a place, right, where sometimes a few months in, things calm down, right? Like you start to actually see, all right, cool, this person's actually showing up for me. And this goes back to the question at the beginning, right? You start showing genuine interest. You start showing up and telling them that you're actually about it. But that's what happens when you eventually win. You might eventually lose interest because the uncertainty and the anticipation are gone. And this is what we're talking about, right? Which is like, you ask, again, why is it that some people, when I start to show genuine interest, they fall off? It's because of this right here. The anticipation is gone. The uncertainty is gone. And now all you're left with is like, okay, do I actually like this person? Is this person somebody I actually want to commit myself to? And see, that's what's interesting for a lot of people. And I think especially women in dating too, is like for a lot of people, I don't want to just say just women. I would say for a lot of people, when we first meet people, we have our guard up. We're really good about holding boundaries. We're not giving our all to people. We are creating this dating situation that is like this, right? Again, that is spiking that other person's dopamine. And what happens is until we actually fully lean in, we don't actually really know how they truly feel about us. And again, that's why I said, it's like at the beginning, a lot of people are so good at upholding boundaries, but at some point or another, that mask is going to come off. And maybe it's not really a mask, right? It takes time to get to know somebody. But I think in general, this is why it's so fucking important to take your time with people, because eventually this chase thing is going to wear off. right? You really need to go super slow. But here's the other end too. It's like you could do all the right things. You could go super slow. You could show up right. It still doesn't mean that they're the right person for you. And that's what you also have to have perspective on, right? Is like, you also just got to understand that, yeah, some people are not going to view you that way, and you're not truly going to be aligned, and you got to be okay with that. Honestly, what are you going to do? Like, that's the thing for my client that just went through this, right? We were talking about how she dated this guy. She showed up right. He didn't want anything. What is she going to do? And the problem is you take it so personal, right? You're like, wow, why me? Why can I never be chosen? You don't control that outcome. I'll give you a reverse example. It's like me posting a video that I really like, and then I get pissed off because it doesn't get any views. Chalk it up to the game. It is what it is. You don't control the way somebody is going to receive you. You don't. So at some point, you got to be unattached to the results. And this is also very important to have that type of detachment in dating. Remind yourself, especially early on. I tell all of my coachees, like, I'm serious. Like, so this coachee and another coachee, they've met new guys and they're like, oh, we had such a good first date. Like, I'm really excited. I thought he was really cool. I immediately remind them, like, watch the fantasy. Watch the fantasy. Slow down. You don't know where this person's going to end up. You don't even know if you guys are aligned on your values. Take your time. Chill out. You really don't know until you know. And again, this is the whole purpose of really slowing down. And again, you constantly have to give yourself that perspective. Okay, no expectations. I can't control the outcome. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean I'm not worthy. It doesn't mean that the next person that I date is also going to think that, or is not going to choose me. Do you get what I'm saying? And that's what happened. Again, what happened to my partner, my client, is that when this situation didn't work out, what happened? She went down in the dumps. Oh, I feel terrible. She's out of commission. And don't get me wrong. It hurts when somebody rejects us. It doesn't matter, right? I don't want to sit here and say, you need to be chill. That's what I told my client today. Actually, the guy was, he was telling me how one of his friends turned around and told him that, hey, dude, we're actually really sick of you talking about this, and you're no longer even fun to be around. Like, this is way too much. And he was like, damn, that really hurt. But I was like, here's one perspective as well, though, too, that I feel like you need to understand. Like, when we go through a rejection like this, it's painful. It takes a second to regroup ourselves and to put ourselves out there. Again, we talked about in the last podcast. You're a human being. You have feelings. You care about people. Even when it's not right, you still need to give yourself some time to, and I told my client today, it's like rehab, right? Or physical therapy, right? When you fucking snap your leg, no one's going to look at you funny when you're walking around in crutches and you can't move places, right? They give you a lot of sympathy. But when you're going through heartbreak, it's almost like people want you to just get over people immediately. Oh, that person treated you like shit. So who gives a fuck? Like, why do you even care about her, dude? You're going through something. It's hard. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, there's like a physical therapy aspect to it, but I told him, think about it more as like mental therapy. There takes a little bit of time for you to get your confidence back and to get back onto your feet. Give yourself that grace. Even though other people are not going to, because again, they can't physically see that you're injured, but mentally and emotionally, you are injured. Take some time for yourself, relax. And again, this is the up and down of dating that's just really difficult. But this is anything in life, right? It really is, right? Think about work for you, whatever it is. What happens when you're performing well and you're getting results? You feel good. You're on top of the world. You're crushing it. Let's say you go through a cold patch and you're not doing well. The results aren't there. What happens to your confidence? It goes down. You feel rejected. You don't feel good. You start to blame yourself. You start to think that you're the problem. And then it becomes this loop where you feel like a failure and then you can't regather yourself. But that's where we need to stop that, right? That's what I'm trying to tell you about dating. It's very similar. If you meet somebody and it doesn't work out after you show them genuine interest, try to release the idea that it's personal. Try to almost have the perspective that is what dating is. I'm going to get to know some people and maybe they're not going to be a right fit for me, or I'm not going to be a right fit for them. That is an absolute possibility. And we need to get comfortable with that. And we can't get so attached to the results. And then when it doesn't work out, we feel like a failure, right? Because think about it. If you're the most successful at your job, right, whatever it is, usually you're very unattached to the results. You show up, you do your work, you do your best, and how it works out, it works out. And those are the people that succeed, is right, the people that could show up each day with a clear mindset and do and control what they can control. And that's what I'm telling you about dating in this particular situation is control what you can control, which is work on your boundaries, work on going slower with partners, work on not taking things so personal, work on understanding what it is that you value so that when you meet a partner, you can really assess very early on, okay, is this person showing up for me in the ways that I need? Are they, do they have the things that I value in a person? This is the skill of dating. This is how we get better and become more effective. And to me, when we can really incorporate these principles that I'm talking about, you're going to find success in dating. And not only that, you're going to feel really good about yourself as well, because you're going to be unattached to the results. It's not going to be about just getting a relationship. We also talked about in the last podcast too, expand your happiness palette, right? Our dopamine or our happiness needs to come from other sources than dating. In the neuroscience article that was really fascinating is he said that some people can be addicted to dating as their only dopamine source. So for instance, this is why people gamble, right? Think about a slot machine. We talked about the uncertainty and the anticipation, right? That's what gambling is. It's the anticipation of the reward and it's the maximum level of uncertainty. Oh, I don't know how this is going to go. Let me keep pulling the wheel. Let me keep pulling the wheel. That's why it's so addicting. And actually, people actually have a dopamine addiction to dating. There's people that literally will sit on dating apps and they're just addicted to the validation that it brings them, right? The messages, the DMs, whatever it is, you could easily get sucked into that. And then what happens is, and I think for a lot of people, is you struggle to maintain long-term relationships because all you're doing is chasing this quick fix dopamine source of dating, right? There's some people out there that they aren't capable of giving you a long-term relationship because they're so addicted to the short-term chase and the dopamine of having the external validation from multiple partners. But this is where we need to be aware. Again, if that is us, if I'm describing you, yep, maybe take some time away or focus on more long-term quality relationships. But again, if it's also you on the other side, you got to observe. And this is also the point of going really slow in dating. Really, this is huge, is you really got to be on your fucking P's and Q's when it comes to dating. You got to be so aware, right? It's a brain game. It's an awareness game. It's really understanding where is that person coming from and what is their intentions. And it takes time to really understand that. And the more data that you have, the better you can make that decision. So before you emotionally get so invested into somebody, why don't you take your time to really see who they are before really diving deep? And the only way you can do that is by watching the fantasy, is by watching how quickly you give your emotions to somebody and give them all that control, because you really don't know who somebody is until you really know. And so I read this little meme today, and it was, I don't know where it was. And it said, dating a guy that wants a girlfriend and dating a guy that wants you are two completely different experiences. Some guy actually countered in the comments and he said, dating a woman who only wants your attention and dating a woman who wants men's, plural, attention are two totally different experiences. So here's the thing. I think for both parties, and the reason I brought up both of those is both parties experience this, where they experience people that they feel that they date that are looking for multiple options, that are not settling on just one person. This is something that is very prevalent, I would say, in our society. But here's the other thing too. Again, this is just the realness of dating. The reality is again, some people are going to date you, and to be honest, from the jump, they don't see you as their everything. And they are going to date multiple people. They are going to entertain other options. And I think the point of this meme or whatever is really saying that a person that is more intentional, you could feel it. And I guess that's what we're really trying to say here about the going slow thing and watching the chase is how intentional are they really being? But even then, right? The reason I don't agree with this meme is because somebody can act like they're so intentional about you, but not necessarily really know enough about you to even know that you're going to go the distance. It's impossible to know that. You get what I'm saying? It's like when you go for a job interview, right? And think about it like in the reverse way, right? Let's say there's a job that you really want. What do you need to do? You need to market yourself well. Hey, I really want this position. Oh, I know what you guys do. You guys sell this. I'm really good at selling that. I'm the perfect person for this fucking job. And what happens? Because you showed all of your intention, they hire you, right? The person that's the most intentional gets hired, right? That's in dating. That's in, job searching. So now now think about the relationship there. There's two people that are involved, right? The employer and the employee. What happens? First off, the employer is trying to sell you a dream of how great the job is. And then the employee or the potential employee is trying to sell you the dream of how great he can do the job. And this is what dating is too. And what happens? Sometimes you get into the job and what happens? Either you as the employee turn around and be like, whoa, this is not what it was all cracked up to be. I do not fuck with these people, or this job sucks dick. You know what I'm saying? Or they are not paying me enough for whatever they have me doing. Hey, they told me that I was going to be selling milk and it looks like I'm fucking, pulling it out of the cow. Like what the fuck is going on? Right? They kind of give you these false expectations. And then on the other side of things, it's true as well. Think about this. You're an employer. This person is showing you all this intention about how great they are, how amazing, how hard of a worker they are. And this happens to me too when I'm hiring people, where then you hire them and they suck. And you hire them and they're ass. They're not doing their fucking job. They said they were going to do it. They're lazy as fuck. They never get up on time, but they sell you a dream. And this is exactly what's happening in dating too. And this is why I said, again, there's no right answer to this question because there's so many possibilities. And again, think about it from the employee-employer standpoint again. There's multiple reasons why you might not like something, right? As an employee, you might like the job but really hate the pay. As an employer, you might really like the person but just hate their work ethic. And that's why I'm trying to tell you, it's like when you give me a general statement like, why did I just show him genuine interest and he left? I don't know. Maybe he thought you were ugly. Maybe he thought that he wanted something different than you. Maybe he was addicted to the dopamine and the dopamine was gone. Unlimited possibilities. Chalk it up to the game. Stop taking shit so personally and just have better boundaries. Go really slow. And guess what? This is life. This is part of it. You're going to fail. You're going to have partners that reject you. Can we be okay with that? You know what I'm saying? To me, to be a more effective dater, you have to really be okay with the idea of like, rejection is a redirection. Rejection is a redirection. I'm so sick of that statement, but again, come on. You get what I'm saying? You really have to believe that. You really do. It's not really a rejection. Okay, this person doesn't really like me. All right, next. I want to find somebody that's genuinely in love with me for who I am. It's not about winning and losing. It's not about getting every single person that you date to love you. It's about finding the right piece that fits in with your life. It's about showing up authentic. And it's about that other person showing up authentic and loving you authentically. That is when it's going to be the best. That is when it's going to be the most fulfilling. So we get so short-sighted when we're talking about this. And here's the thing. You could think that the person that you're dating is everything that you want. And honestly, you'd be like, oh my God, they have all of my values. They're fucking amazing. But if they don't see that in you, cooked. That's it. What are you going to do? Sorry. Find the next person. There is plenty of people out there that are in alignment with your values. You have to also believe that as well. There's plenty of great people out there. That's what I'm working on with my client right now too. I'm like, I understand that this didn't work out and it's hard, but regather yourself. It's not about your worthiness. And let's get back out there. There's great people out there. There's great situations. You're going to find what you're looking for. All right. Let's talk about jealousy. And I'm going to bring you up the situation and let's get after it because I loved this. She said, I would love to hear your views, advice, reassurance on this topic. And she said she was thankful for the podcast. You're welcome. She said the topic is on jealousy over friends who seem to get more high value relationships, have more money, and just all around appear that things just kind of fall into their laps. And I don't mean this in a pity party way, but I genuinely have worked so hard to build a life for myself and grow mentally. It just seems like opportunities that don't always come natural to me. No one wants to have feelings of jealousy, but it is somewhat of a normal emotion that I don't think is talked about enough. And we're going to get into that, but that is very true. I want to be the best, most supportive friend without these feelings holding me back. Of note, I'm at one of the best points I've ever been at. You know, she said, I'm 28. I got 2 houses, a wonderful family, a fucking dog. She even threw the dog in there. You know how the girls get with their damn dog. In the best shape of my life, but, big but, I am so dang jealous of my best friend who just started seeing a super successful doctor. Jealous of the love, money, status. And I think a lot of people might be able to relate. She said, thank you always. All right. So we're going to hit this from multiple angles. So remember I was telling you guys about the book I was reading from the girl at the coffee shop and how things are just happening in divine timing? Well, it started to, this book, and this is how I'm going to attack this question. I'm going to talk about like the origin of jealousy and competition and kind of almost like show the truth behind her statement of like, it's a normal human emotion. It actually is. It's built into our DNA. And there's a reason that we feel this way. It's actually based on our evolution. That is the reason that I think we have jealousy and envy. Oh, and one quick note that I want to decipher here. There is a difference between jealousy and envy. And what we're talking about here is actually envy. Jealousy is fear of losing a relationship or a valued part of that relationship. Whereas envy is we want something another person has. So what you're describing is actually envy and not really jealousy, just so we can get the terminology right. But let's talk about the origin of all this and why human beings in the first place, I would say are envious of one another. So this is actually evolutionary. So think about it from the standpoint of this. When we were back in the day, we were like human beings. We're first starting out. We're in these small knit groups, 20 to 50 people. And that's how we survived, right? It was like this tribe. And essentially we were primal, right? And here's the thing. The biggest threat to people is not actually the environment, which is what a lot of people think that evolution is about, right? Oh, we developed these big brains just because we needed to kill and hunt things in the wild and we needed to survive. That's only half the truth. The other half is this. The reason we develop such big brains is actually because other people were our competition. So think about even life today. Are you worried about a fucking squirrel? Are you worried about getting run over or killed by a bear? Are you worried about anything in the environment? No. What is most of your competition surrounded by? It's other people. And that is actually the truth about the origin of humanity as well. The reason we've developed big brains is not to compete with the rest of the ecosystem and the environment. It's actually to compete within each other. It's to compete for social status, what she's talking about. It's to compete for mates. It's to compete for politics within the group itself. So actually, that's what I'm saying. In society, the problem is when we were first, again, primal, it was kind of a zero-sum game. It's like if I'm more attractive or smarter or better, I get the select of the mate. I mean, let's be honest though. Think about our society even right now. Is it not somewhat similar, right? The more social status you have, the more power you have, the more attractiveness you have, people treat you better. You have more access to things. And that's just what the truth is behind humanity in general. It's the uncomfortable truth that we don't really talk about. And that's what the book was even talking about, is how in human society, we always pump up the love and care of other people. But really the underlying truth is like, we also feel very competitive towards each other. And that's what she's describing here. She's like, obviously I don't want to feel that way, but I do. And again, this is why I'm telling you, it's actually evolutionary. The reason our brains are so big and we evolve so fast, again, is not to compete with the other things in the environment. It was to compete with each other. Because generally speaking, we're all on kind of the same plane of intelligence, but you need to really push yourself in order to move forward, right? To gain more social status, to be more attractive to a mate. You had to be smarter, right? You need to discern who's deceiving you, who's not deceiving you. And that's why we built this really, really, really complicated system of politics and social status. Like, our world is just a massive, complicated version of that old primal group mentality, right? You had to team up with different allies to get ahead. You had to deceive people. Well, some people deceive people to get ahead. There's two ways to get ahead as well. They talked about, like, you could dominate or you could actually get there through prestige, right? So there's people that would dominate through like fear and force, like, oh, I'm bigger than you, I could fuck you up. And then there's other people that succeeded by winning the favor of the people around them, right? By being a great citizen or by cooperating with a bunch of people, they were able to get ahead. So there's two different paths as well. I thought this was fucking fascinating. But let's take it to modern day. And because here's the problem, right? So now I just talked about how it's almost like evolutionary that we have this competitiveness, and it almost feels like there is this idea of like scarcity. I think that's really what it is, right? It's almost just like there's not enough to go around, so I feel upset that that person is succeeding and I'm not. But to be honest, I would turn around and say that's actually the part that, for me, and I think for a lot of humans, that I think that we're actually trying to shift. I feel like the new age thinking and feeling, and I do believe this to be the truth, and the better way to live is actually with the mindset of abundance, that not only can they win, but you can win too. And here's the other thing too. So this was a really fascinating thing that I read in this book called The Mastery of Self. And it talks about competition. And it kind of talks about this, right? How, again, you know, for most human beings, we do have this scarcity mindset. We are going from a place of ego. But with scarcity comes what? It comes fear. It comes with a lack of trust that what is for you will be. So I want you to practice this Buddhist tradition, and they call it mudita. And mudita is sympathetic joy, which is the practice of having joy in the accomplishments, achievements, and good fortune of others. Mudita. That's what you need in your life. And you really need to be like, yeah, you know what? I'm actually happy for you. And here's the thing about comparison and jealousy. You have to recognize that it is part of you. And that's the thing is you can't actually control the emotion of envy and jealousy, but you can control your actions and you can control your own self-perceptions. I think about it even from my own standpoint. Of course, for instance, this is really why sometimes I struggle to watch TikTok. I don't know if you guys know this, but I don't watch TikTok at all. Almost zero. We're talking about 0 hours a day. And part of that is because what would happen is when I go on TikTok and I start to watch and I start to see other people and I start to look at their numbers, what happens? It starts to fester. I start to compare. I start to get envious. Oh, they're posting 3 videos a day and they're getting this many views. Wow, what does that say about me? Think about that state of mind. It's lack, it's scarcity, it's fear. It's fear that I'm not on the path that I should be on. And I don't want to feel like that. Now, there's times where you just can't avoid it. But what you really need to do, and something that I really try to practice, is reversing that. If I see a creator that's doing really well, I tell myself, I hope they get even more success. I wish for their success. I wish for their happiness. And again, even if underlying, again, I do have those feelings, that changes the perspective for me. I get into that mindset of abundance. Because here's the thing, right? It's going to feel uncomfortable to practice that, right? Mudita. It's uncomfortable. But here's the reason why it's so important, right? Everyone gets exactly what they need in every moment. And this includes you. So here's also the problem with being jealous and envious. I think it's actually a lack of perspective. Because here's the thing. You might see your friend, they're with this high status, high doctor. First off, you have none of the real information. You have no idea the ins and outs of their relationship. You have no idea how they're feeling day to day. And think about this from your life in general too. Has any of the beautiful, nice things that you've ever had in your life really gave you joy? Think about this. You just told me how you have a beautiful family, a dog, all these things. You're still not happy? Think about the way that person feels. You could have the high status partner. You could have all the money in the world. That is not the stuff that makes you happy. It is not the circumstances of your life that make you happy. It's actually great perspective. It's finding gratitude in the moment. It's finding gratitude for what it is that you have already. That's what happiness is. Happiness is not anything external to you. Anything external to you is just ego. It's just scarcity. It's just fear. It's fear that you don't have exactly what is meant for you. But again, take a bigger perspective. Yes, in this moment, she might be meeting this high status partner and maybe she feels really good about it, is really happy. First off, her happiness has nothing to do with yours. But the second part is life is very long. You don't know what that action is actually going to bring for her. Maybe she gets this high status partner, they're doing really well, and then in 2 years, he cheats. Or something detrimental happens and she felt all this good high, but then it became a low. And that's what I'm trying to tell you is you really don't know what is meant for you and why you're getting the things that you need in this moment. You cannot tell. Think about some of the worst things that's ever happened to you in your life. Think about the worst things. Think about, a couple years ago, whatever it is. You're telling me you don't look back now and say, wow, thank you. Thank you for that moment. Thank you for that lesson. Thank you for teaching me something that I needed to learn so I could find this beautiful relationship that I really wanted. And actually, my client, the one we're talking about right now, that's what she said to me. She sent me a text message the other day. And she was like, and again, remember, she just met this guy, 4 months. He blew her off. She's feeling like shit. She's like, Chris, I can't help but feel envious and jealous. I see my friends and they're being so successful in their relationships and they're doing so well and it's so hard to see. I'm like, be blessed for the opportunities and the things and the gifts that you have in your current moment. You have no idea what that is going to bring for them. That's what I told her too. I was like, you have no idea what this means. You losing this relationship could be the best thing that's ever happened to you. You could meet the love of your life tomorrow. And maybe actually you find so much fulfillment just even in this moment being single. There's so many beautiful things that are happening to you right now in this moment. And again, for the people that you're jealous of, you have no idea what that stuff is going to bring them. Again, let's look at this in 5 years. Let's see if they're really happy. Let's see if they divorce. Let's see if something tragic happens. And again, you don't wish those things to happen to people. That's fucked up. You wish for them to have peace. You wish for them to have happiness. But my whole point is, you really don't know what anything is really going to bring you in life. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of the abundance, right? Is you really need to believe for yourself. And you need to get over the myth. Scarcity is a myth. And the reason it's a myth is because you always get what you need. And that's where you need to have God in your life. You need to have gratitude in your life. Again, you might not have the things that you want, the numbers that you want, but maybe that's not what you need. Maybe that's not meant for you in this moment. And that doesn't mean that your life is worse off than the next person. That comparison is completely invalid. And that's what I'm trying to say. Happiness isn't built into more money, more status, a better partner, quote unquote, according to who? I was saying, a great partner, maybe he has all this status, but emotionally he's bankrupt. You have no idea. And again, you have no idea what's really happening behind closed doors with most people. And I hope this really gives you a lot of perspective when it comes to jealousy and it comes to envy. It's fear. Don't you want to have the self-trust that everything that you have is meant for you? Don't you want to have gratitude for the things that you do have? You can't lean into the present moment because that's all we have. We only have the present moment. And whether you're driving a Corolla or a Maserati, the car is not what makes you happy. It's the person inside the car that makes you happy. It's the mindset that you have. It's the perspective that you have. It's being able to see the beauty in everything, no matter what the circumstances is. That's what happiness is. So, the next time that you see somebody and you're feeling envious, mudita, have joy. I hope that they receive more. I hope that they have more. That gives you confidence because you're showing up with unconditional love. And then you appreciate yourself and your life because you know that you're getting everything that is supposed to happen for you. That's self-trust. That's confidence. That's love. That's happiness. That's letting go of ego. What's meant for you is always going to be. Trust me. And I'm telling you right now, I sit here and I feel that same way, right? Like, I look at other creators that have like 3 million, 4 million. I'm like, why isn't that me? Why can't I be happy with what I do have right now? A beautiful home. No matter how many listeners I have, the fact that I have people listening to this, gratitude, present moment. I could only be here right now in this chair. I can't be anywhere else. What's the point of caring about what the person next to me is doing? Run your own race, blinders on. You get what I'm saying? Imagine if you realize the only reason that people feel unhappiness is based on the comparison to others. If there was no other human beings in the world, you would never actually feel unhappy. Isn't that wild to think about? All of our unhappiness stems from comparison. It stems from us benchmarking what we have to the next person. And again, you could choose to live a life where you're benchmarking yourself constantly to other people, or you could choose to live a life where you are gracious for the life that you have. And what's crazy is your performance, the things that you want, the goals that you have, you're going to achieve them so much faster and with so much more grace and happiness when you run your own race and you just do it for the love of the game. We don't have fucking any control. We don't. Let go of control. Surrender. Surrender. Surrender the control to something external to you and just enjoy the ride. Enjoy the moment. Do what you love to do. Hug your family. Take the dog for a walk. Enjoy the air outside. Because even if she's dating a super hot doctor, what's the difference? She's still got to take a piss and a shit. She's still got to go to sleep. She's still going to have a headache. She's still going to have anxiety. She's still a human being. You know what I'm saying? And so is he. And again, I have a 4-bedroom house. Woo! Does that make my sleep better than the person that only has a 1-bedroom? No. We both got to sleep on a singular bed. It's a virus. I was reading about this in this book called Inner Excellence. It's the affluenza virus. Everybody's attached to money, status, all this shit. It doesn't mean jack. It doesn't mean jack. So I hope that gives you some perspective today. And I hope that you can practice some mudita because it will really help you release your jealousy and your envy. But again, also the perspective of like, you have no fucking clue what anything is going to bring you in life. So you might as well trust and have that abundance mindset that what's for you will not miss you, and trust that even when something negative is happening to you, be gracious for it. Thank you. Oh, this person didn't think about the earlier situation. I showed up genuine to this guy and he didn't show up for me. Thank you. I'm going to turn around and say, thank you, because I want to be with somebody who genuinely loves me for me. And that when I do show up genuine, guess what? They genuinely love me back in return. So thank you. I'm not actually going to be mad at you. Why would I be mad at you? Actually, I love you. I appreciate the fact that you showed me your true colors. Now that's motherfucking perspective. Now that's motherfucking mindset, bitch. All right. So I hope you lead your life with a little bit more happiness today. Release the envy, release the jealousy. You don't need it. Release the attachment to the status, the money, the outside circumstances of your life, and just enjoy the process. Enjoy the moment. Do the things that you love to do. Do it unconditionally. And also, see what other people give you, right? Take your time in dating. But again, stay unattached. You don't control the outcome. You don't control other people. All you do is control yourself, control your own mindset, find that happiness for yourself, build that happiness for yourself, strengthen that mindset. And guess what? Doesn't matter what the circumstances are. Imagine if we had this mindset. What's going to happen? If I'm in jail, I'm happy. If I lose my house, I'm still happy. Really, the perspective that you need to have is no expectations, and I'm capable of handling anything. That is true mindset. That's the truth about life. Anything can happen at any time, and you have no idea why it's even happening. We just got deep. Haha. Wish I was getting deep in you. What? All right. I got to go. That's enough for me. If you ever want to work with me, I would love to help you. I would love to help your mindset, right? It's not just about dating, because dating is just, dating is an extension of it, right? But it's really just about, finding this inner peace and having a lot of this great perspective, and it will change your life. Your relationships will get better. Your life will get better. You'll probably make more money, the whole thing. So you know where to find me. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you soon.